Sorry, Mike, we're not considering adding anything on until the new year. Thanks. Hello, it's Michael Helper with Sales Scripter, and in this video I want to talk about how to respond to objections in emails. And just to let you know the direction we're going to go with this topic, responding to objections in email messages is actually very difficult, and you have less options and less room to work with. So while I'm actually going to show you a real objection and show you how I responded to that, and that may give you some ideas of how you can respond to objections in emails, we're actually probably going to use this more as an opportunity to revisit how to handle objections from a tactic standpoint, and then applying that to when you receive objections in emails. So with that, when you get an objection, one of the most important things to do is focus on the right goal when trying to figure out how to respond. And at every moment when you're talking to a prospect, you pretty much have two different goals that you can focus on. You always have the ultimate goal of selling the product to the customer, trying to get the customer to agree to buy what you're trying to sell, which is really what's most important to you. But also at every given moment when you're talking to a prospect, you have an immediate goal, which is just to get the prospect to move to the next step in your sales process. So it's important to keep these two different goals in mind when you get an objection, because your natural instinct can be to try to respond to the objection by focusing on the ultimate goal of trying to get the prospect to want to buy from you, but resist that natural instinct and constantly remind yourself to focus on just trying to get the prospect to move to the next step of your sales process. And to show you visually what this looks like from a sales process standpoint, if you're talking to a prospect at the very beginning of the sales process, and this might be a cold call, applying this to what we're talking about here today, which is email messages, this could be communicating with a prospect in a cold email message. And when the prospect replies to that cold email message with an objection, your natural instinct might be to try to respond in a way where you get the prospect want to buy from you. So if the prospect responds to your email with something like, "I'm not interested," what you want to do as a salesperson is to try to respond to that email in a way that makes the prospect interested. And this is focusing on the last step of the sales process, which is getting the prospect to purchase from you. And the flaw in that is that, as I've already discussed, there's a lot of steps in between. And with our objection handling and our objection responses, we can focus primarily with what we say on the steps in between these two bookends of the sales process. For example, the next step in our sales process, if we're sending a cold email or making a cold call, could be just to simply have a conversation. And when we're in that conversation, we might want to try to close the prospect on a deeper discussion where we can explain how we can help in the form of a presentation or a demonstration. And with our objection responses, we can focus more on these steps. And I'll show you what that will look like in terms of some objection responses. But as I've already mentioned, responding to objections is much easier when you're on the phone, because you have some sort of back and forth with the prospect, and you have more room to work with saying something to the prospect and trying to get them to go in a certain direction than you do in an email exchange. For example, if you're talking to a prospect and you get some of these objections, such as, "I'm not interested, we're not making any changes, we don't have any money or budget right now, we already use someone," you could respond to those objections by deflecting with a question and saying something like, "Oh, I understand. If I could ask you real quick, how difficult is it for you to teach reps everything they need to say? Or do you need to decrease the amount of time it takes to get new reps ramped up and trained?" Or you could respond to those same objections with a current state question. So if the prospect says, "We're not making any changes right now," "Oh, yeah, I understand. If I could ask you real quick, are you guys using any type of sales scripts or sales playbook today?" So I'm using my questions to keep the conversation going and to get away from the objection without necessarily addressing or overcoming the objection. Now, if you can try to picture receiving any of these objections in an email, that's more difficult to do, because if the prospect responds with some sort of objection like, "I'm not interested," it's very difficult to respond to that with a question and get the prospect to reply to your email, because you either won't get any reply or you'll start to annoy the prospect who's just trying to send a message that makes you go away. Now here's another response for those same objections, and this is, instead of deflecting by asking a question, this is deflecting more towards the sales process that we're trying to go through. So if the prospect says, well, we aren't making any changes right now, the reality is that I'm not trying to sell the product, I'm trying to sell the conversation. So the fact that the prospect is not making any changes right now technically is not a valid objection for us to stop moving forward. The process I'm trying to work through and the next step that I'm focused on closing is just to have a conversation. The fact that they're not interested, that the fact that they're not making any changes, the fact that they don't have budget, the fact that they already use one of my competitors is not relevant to the next step that I'm trying to close. And I can almost tell the prospect that with some sort of response in the direction of, hey, I understand. And I want you to know I'm not reaching out to you today to try to get you to sign up or to sell you anything. More so, I'm just looking to open the dialogue between our two companies and start an initial conversation. We'd like to learn a little bit more about you, possibly share some information about us. That way, when your budget opens up or you are looking to make a change, you can know who we are and how we can help, and we could pick back up at that time. Are you open to a brief conversation? It doesn't have to be this week or next. We're not going anywhere. But at some point, are you open to starting that dialogue and starting that conversation? So what I'm doing in that response is I'm focused on that next step of the process, which is just simply having a conversation and trying to defuse the objection because, again, it's not really relevant. Now, this objection response right here does work in email responses, and that's what I'll show you here in a minute, because this is the type of response that I sent in my objection response in a cold email. Now, I just went through a few different objections and a few different objection responses, and there's actually a full training module on objection handling that is on our YouTube channel. And if you want to watch that, all you have to do is go to this playlist, The Smart Sales System, Sell Smarter, Not Harder, and there's actually a module titled Getting Around Sales Objections, and that module goes through our full objection handling methodology and provides all sorts of different responses to common objections that you are guaranteed to face. So I'll put a link to that video in the description below. Okay, so now let's look at an example. And to provide you a little bit of background on the example that I'm going to show you, this objection response is actually the result of a cold email that I sent out. And I sent out that email as part of a cold email prospecting workshop video series. If you haven't seen any of those videos, I'll put links to those also in the description below. But in that workshop, I went through a process to actually create the messaging strategy for a cold email campaign, put together the cold email campaign, and showed you how to find prospects on LinkedIn. And as part of that cold email workshop, we've been working through LinkedIn to find prospects, and we currently have around 700 contacts that we've pulled from LinkedIn, and we've added those contacts to this cold email campaign selling the Smart Sales System, targeting sales trainers. And this is the email campaign that we have going out to those prospects. And so the objection that I'm going to share with you that I got to a cold email was actually a response to this first email here. And this is the response. As you can see here in the bottom half is the actual email that I sent to this prospect. And here's his response, which he says, "Sorry, Mike, we're not considering adding anything on until the new year. Thanks." So this is some version of we're not making any changes right now. And as I showed you in the objection responses a few slides before, if we were talking on the phone, I could have responded to this and said, "Oh yeah, hey, I understand, but listen, if I could ask you real quick, are you guys using anything for this? Or if I could ask you real quick, how concerned are you about that?" Now, I can't do that in a cold email because that, again, would either just not get a response or it would annoy the prospect. But what I can do is I can deflect back to the sales process. So this is how I responded. No problem at all. I'm not reaching out to sell anything, more so just looking to start conversations with sales trainers such as yourself. I can certainly check back in with you in the new year, but if you're open to having a short intro conversation in the meantime, I would be open to that. If we meet, I will keep in mind that there's not an immediate need, and after the call, you can keep us in mind when there is a need or a need arises. Let me know if you're interested. Look forward to possibly catching up with you at some point. So that is my objection handling response. I'm trying to keep the conversation going and trying to get that conversation ahead of before the period of time where he's trying to kick the can to. He hasn't responded. It's very likely that he will not respond to this. I can still call this prospect with that same type of objection response. Hey, got your email. I see that you're not making any changes right now. No problem at all. Listen, I just wanted to reach out. I'm not trying to sign you up for anything, not trying to get you to make any decisions, just looking to have an initial conversation. Is that something you're open to? At which point he still might just push the conversation off to next year or down the road, and that's fine. But this methodology gives us something to respond. It gives us something to try to close for. It gives us an option to try to keep the conversation going. And so hopefully that gives you some ideas of how you can respond to some objections that you receive via email. And if nothing else, this should be a reminder to you and to all of us that yes, email is an important tool in our bag, but at the end of the day, nothing can replace being on the phone with prospects, because when we're on the phone and we get those same objections, we have a lot more control and a lot more options for how to respond and how to get around those objections and how to keep those conversations going. And that's pretty much it. Hopefully you got a tip or two out of this video that you find helpful. And if you did and you want to return the favor, very easy for you to do. All you have to do is like, comment, share this video, subscribe to our channel. Any of those help us and none of those cost you anything. If you like these tips, you may want to follow us on any of these social platforms. We try to post tips every day. If you like what I discussed here, everything I shared with you here today is part of the SMART sales system, which is our overall methodology, and SMART stands for sales messaging and response tactics. And we call it the SMART sales system because it's a step-by-step process and methodology that you can actually implement for yourself or for your sales organization. And level 1 of the SMART sales system is to create your sales message, to organize all the key things that you should be communicating to prospects. And once you have that, then you can very easily use that sales message to create your cold call scripts, email messages, your objection responses, which is what I showed you some examples of here today. And then once you have your objection responses and your sales scripts and your email templates, then it's about executing, and that's all discussed in level 3 of the SMART sales system. Now, the great news is that if you want to implement and learn the SMART sales system, you can do that all today for free because it's all on YouTube. As I've already mentioned, all you have to do is go to this playlist, the SMART sales system, Sell Smarter, Not Harder, and there's a video for every module of the SMART sales system that you can go and you can watch that for free. And the reason why we give away our training methodology for free is because all of this does align with a product that we do sell called Sales Scripter, which is a software application that aligns with all of this. For example, level 1 is to create your sales message. In the Sales Scripter software application, there's an area called the Sales Message Builder, which will take you through our step-by-step process to create your sales message. And once you have your sales message in the software also aligns with level 2 because it provides a sales playbook, which is a library of sales scripts and email templates and objection responses, and all of those templates get filled in with your sales message, and that's how you end up with a custom tailored library of sales scripts and emails and a whole bunch more. And certainly the software aligns with level 3, a full CRM and email automation functionality, helping you with execution and your day-to-day sales efforts. And the upgrade from there is certainly I'm available as a sales consultant to work with you in any of these areas. A lot of clients hire me to help with level 1, where I'll go through the brainstorming process, helping you to create your sales message and organize your different benefits and brainstorm the pain points you should focus on and questions you should ask, as well as I help with level 2 and level 3. If that's interesting but you still don't know what to do, you may want to check out my book, The SMART Sales System, Sell Smarter, Not Harder, and you can get a copy of that on Amazon here. I'll put a link in the description below for that as well. That's pretty much it. If you want more help, the best place to go is salesscripter.com. There are plenty of videos that provide more sales tips. There are ebooks that you can download for free. If you have questions on the product of Sales Scripter, there are plenty of videos that demonstrate all of the different features of Sales Scripter. If you want to contact us, you can get our email address, phone number from the website. There's also a chat window as well. And that is pretty much it. Thanks for being here. Hope this was helpful and have a great day. Take care. Bye.